Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, is in case you are joining us from another part of the world. It's great to have you here with us again today. It is the 29th webinar of the month, and we only have 2 more left after today. And honestly, I'm going to actually miss this routine. It's been a part of my life every day for the past month, and my team as well. I'm sure they're going to miss it as well. But today we're really excited to bring to you the webinar on exercise and lymphedema, and we are happy to welcome Dennis Ittenbach. And he prepared a wonderful presentation. I got a sneak peek of his slides, and you're in for a real treat. And also, we have our sponsored session by WhereEase, and we are going to be welcoming Phyllis Keith, who is the founder and CEO of WhereEase. And stay around till the very end for a giveaway, and that's the agenda. So to get started, I'd like to introduce my team to you, because they are an important part of what makes the NLN tick. So important. And first we have Alyssa, who we see a beautiful shadow and silhouette of. There we go. We see a little bit more of her. And she is the NLN Garment Program Manager. And below her is Veronica Senares. She is our social media manager. Below me is Erin Sokolsky, who is our marketing manager, and who always likes to make a grand finale entrance. Christy Blair, and her daughter Emily is usually in the picture as well, is coming on any second now. And Christy Blair is right there with Emily. Hello, Emily. And Christy is our project manager. And last but not least, we also have 2 other people who could not join us via video. Nicole Ballard is our membership manager, and Jennifer Williams is our continuing education manager. On top of that, we have an amazing board of directors who sometimes join us behind the scenes as attendees. And if I find them, I will introduce you to them as well. I'm Jeanette Zucker, the Executive Director of the National Lymphedema Network, at your service. And with that, I'm going to actually insert here our disclaimer. Even though we absolutely love Dennis and his presentation and everything he's going to say, it does not necessarily represent the position of the National Lymphedema Network. The opinions expressed in his presentation are those of his own. And let's see, and even though we absolutely love Keith Phyllis and WhereEase and all of her products, same thing, the National Lymphedema Network does not necessarily endorse the products. We are simply trying to connect everything that is available to you, the patient community, and the lymphedema community at large, to the available sponsors and products and services that can help make treatment and self-management much more easy and much more feasible and efficient and a wonderful experience. Let's see, what other disclaimers? I feel as I'm missing one more. I'll remember it at some point in time and let you know what that is. But I also forgot to tell you that we are also going to be having a small talk by Veronica Senares. She's going to be talking about her work on social media with her group called Lymphy-Strong. So that is going to be after Phyllis Keith talking about WhereEase. So that is the plan for today. And so with that, it is my pleasure to welcome Dennis Ittenbach. He is a physical therapist who owns a private practice called Hope and Life Lymphedema. Dennis, if I misremembered that, please correct me. And he is based in Hilton Head, South Carolina, right? Not North Carolina, South Carolina.
That is South Carolina.
Okay, all right. Well, Dennis, we're so happy to have you, and we're excited for your talk. I will be paying attention, and please add to your bio and tell us more about yourself, and take it away. The floor is all yours.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me to be have the opportunity to come onto the NLN, to be a part of this wonderful awareness month that you've created. After doing 29 days, it's so evident that there's so much information and education that still needs to be done on this disease, so that the medical community becomes more and more aware. And that's really why we created the Hope Life Center, was to also not to be able to provide services, but also to increase education and awareness of the Hope Life Lymphedema and Rehab Center. So what I'm going to do is just kind of start. I have created a little PowerPoint. We are going to talk about An area, that is often neglected and not really talked about, which is exercise and lymphedema. And hopefully we'll talk about why it is so important to develop a fitness and an exercise program when you are trying to deal and work with this disease as well. So I'm going to try to put on my share screen. I'm not Zoom savvy, but we are going to do our best shot here. So hopefully everybody can see that. If not, Jeanette, please let me know.
It's
Otherwise.
perfect. Perfect.
Okay, great. So as I said, I'm the owner of the Hope Life Lymphedema and Rehab Center. Just a little bit of background about myself. I have been a practicing physical therapist for over 25 years. I'm originally from Indianapolis, Indiana. And I'd say in over 23 now years, cancer and lymphedema have been a very profound part of my life. Mostly because my wife is a recurrent metastatic breast cancer survivor herself, who went through very aggressive treatments and also went for 17 years before she developed lymphedema herself. So she actually has stage 2 lymphedema in her arm. But ever since she went through her treatment, the one thing I recognized is that the health profession was not doing enough for cancer survivorship and also for lymphedema treatment. So, so again, for 20 plus years, I've been in oncology rehab. 17 years, obviously, since lymphedema is such a profound component of cancer. I've been a certified lymphedema therapist for 17 years and board certified with the Lymphedema Association of North America, or called LANA, for 14 years. So I guess in this area, I'm kind of one of those old farts that have always been practicing and have always been, as I call, a frontline person on it. About 3.5 years ago, we created the Hope Life Lymphedema and Rehab Center. HOPE is actually an acronym for helping our patients enjoy life. And that's what we're here for. And so that's what today we're going to talk about, really, again, focusing on exercise and lymphedema. So kind of some of the goals that I hope we can try to share today. I'm going to move this out of the way here. Is one is just understanding how much our musculoskeletal system, and specifically the muscle pump, can have an impact about moving fluid and the lymphatic load through the body. Understanding how to exercise and what different types of exercises they are, and how that can benefit overall health in general. But then also hopefully maybe giving some suggestions for those who are working with lymphedema on what are some of the best exercises specifically for you. So if we really look at just the lymphedema, and we look at more than anything else, how does fluid move through the body? And there's really 4 areas in our body where we can hold and retain fluid. One is our vascular system, which is the heart pump and stuff, which we'll get into. The other is our lymphatic system. The third is that area in between the vascular system and the lymphatic system that we call the interstitial space. Some people will call it the extracellular space. And then also our tissue itself. And so we want to understand, how does fluid dynamically move through the body? And that's some of the key elements that we look at. So if we look at just, and I know this might be a review for many of you, but I really think it's important that we still have this discussion and really understand some of the basics, so we're all on the same plane. So if we look at basically the vascular system, and if we look at its general function, the vascular system is simply a fluid transporting system. It's collecting oxygen and nutrients from the core of our body, pushing it out into the limbs, out into the organs to drop off what it needs to. It picks up what it can, and it brings it back for reuse or for disposal. So again, we have the heart pump, we have the arteries, we have the veins, and we have what are called the capillaries, which are the joining factors between it. It's a looping system. It's a circulatory system. And you can see that the pump is basically the main driving point of the vascular system. Through its contractions, it's pushing blood out either into the lungs to get more oxygen. It's then coming back and then pushing that oxygen-rich fluid out into the organs and out into the limbs. It's going to transfer into the abdominal region for the nutrients. It's going to push fluid into the kidneys for disposal, but it's also going to push everything else into the limbs, into the organs for basically life's function. Now, within that, there's key areas that we have to look at. And this is what's really interesting about the vascular system, is that each section has its own unique aspects, which input and basically can affect the lymphatic system. So if you look at the artery section, and that's the section right up and through here, it actually has its own muscular system. Now, based on demand, these muscles will either contract or they'll expand to either allow more fluid to go in or more blood to go to that area, or restrict more blood to go to that area. But it's very, very strong, very dense, and nothing will pass through that membrane or through those thick arteries. The veins, on the other hand, are very loose. They're very small. They're very flimsy. They're made to somewhat expand and contract a little bit, and they also have valves to them. So there's a difference between the amount of pressure going through the arteries compared to the amount of pressure going through the veins. Usually blood is pushed through the arteries at an average pressure of 100. You take somebody's blood pressure 120/80, average it out, it drops down to averages out to about 100. But in the veins, that pressure generally drops to about 25. That's a very, very drastic change in blood pressures. And what's amazing about it is you need a minimum of 20 millimeters, and we measure it in millimeters of mercury, but you need a minimum of 20 just to push blood up against gravity. So that's a very big dynamic here that can influence whether somebody has swelling or can be impacted by swelling and edema. What's also interesting is in our capillaries, which is that junction between these other two, is very porous. Our capillaries act almost kind of like a garden weeping hose, so that when you put it under pressure, fluid is able to weep out of these capillaries into that interstitial range. And that's where we see fluid moving out of the bloodstream and into that interstitium or into that extracellular space. So under pressure, basically high water pressure, fluid is pushed out of the bloodstream into that interstitial space. And that's how our tissue is fed. Now, we used to think that fluid or water could actually be reabsorbed into the veins through what we call osmotic pressure. And that's just with excess salt that was left in the blood. But we now found that doesn't happen. So any fluid that is pushed out of the bloodstream into that tissue space is going to be trapped in that tissue space. That's where the lymphatic system comes in. Now, if we look at what is the purpose of our lymphatic system, our lymphatic system is basically the filtering system of our body. That's what its job is. It is the filtering system of our body. What's different between the vascular system and our lymphatic system is that our lymphatic system is a one-way system. You have entry ports and then you have exit points. So it starts in that interstitial space. So you see all throughout and through here where we have those capillaries where fluid is being pushed out to feed the tissue. It's mixing with the metabolic waste that the tissue is spitting out. It's up to the lymphatic system to pull and draw that fluid out of that tissue space and filter it, drain it, and then redeposit it for either reuse or for disposal. And so if we look a little bit closer, one thing that I wanted to kind of point out is that at the very tips of our lymphatic system is where basically the funnels are. That's where that fluid is drawn into the lymphatic system. So this goes on basically pressures. If there's more pressure outside the lymphatic system and less pressure inside the lymphatic system, we're going to get lymphatic flow. Now there's two ways that you can have that happen. One is the lymphatic system can try to draw or suck fluid in because it has its own pumping mechanism, or we can generate increased fluid with our muscles to increase more pressure to actually push fluid into the lymphatic system. And this is why exercise is so important. And this is one thing we try to teach our patients here, is that depending upon only the lymphatic system to try to draw fluid into itself, oftentimes is not enough. Sometimes we need to aid that. We need to push fluid into that lymphatic system. Now, where a lot of times that can happen is understanding also that the lymphatic system is different in that it has its own muscular system as well. Our lymphatic vessels, that once that fluid is in the lymphatic system, it has its own muscular system that has its own kind of pumping rhythm. Now, generally that rhythm is about 6 to 10 times per minute. All right. So you'll see that since the lymphatic system has what we call valve chambers, when one of those valve chambers is expanded and fills up, a trigger is released, it will squeeze and it will pump that fluid up from one valve chamber to another chamber to another chamber. What we've also found, very similar to our heart, is that if you increase the load, if you push more fluid into it, you'll actually find that the lymphatic system will actually speed up. And if we stimulate it enough, we can actually get that system pumping as much as 20 to 30 times a minute. And Zuther, who's the head of the American Academy of Lymphatic Studies, has even documented they've seen it pump as much as 60 times a minute. So the more rhythmic motion you can put into this, the more fluid you push into that, it's called the Starling effect. But the more fluid you push into that lymphatic system, you can actually get it pumping faster and pumping harder. And so that's, again, one of the things that we want to try to emphasize is why it's important to not just force the lymphatic system to draw fluid, but we also want to push fluid into it. Now, where is a lot of that done? And that's understanding, again, I know these are technical and I hope not to be too technical with you, but I think it's really, really great and fantastic to see some of these, is that we have to look at, there's a strong relationship between our lymphatic vessels. There are what we call deep lymphatic vessels, which you see here, and then there are superficial lymphatic vessels. Now, being a lymphedema therapist, we do the program called complete decongestive therapy, which is still kind of one of the gold standards, for lymphedema treatment. Is our effect through our manual therapy and through the massage only affects those superficial lymphatics. Those again, these up here, those shallower vessels here, those deeper vessels that you see, those deeper lymphatics that are underneath the muscles and inside the muscles, if they aren't pushed, if we don't push fluid through these vessels, they actually have connectors that they will percolate. That's what we call these things right here in what we call the fascial area. They will actually, any excess fluid will percolate and start overwhelming the superficial system. And that's where you can start getting the buildup of congestion. That's where you can start getting that fibrosis, where you start developing that pitting edema. That's where you can get the irritation and inflammation that occurs in the skin that starts changing the skin. So the more we can lessen the load on the superficial lymphatics by pushing fluid through the deeper lymphatics, we are actually going to aid in managing our lymphedema. So we have to look at how does the lymphatic system work? And this again goes into loading and pushing fluid and drawing fluid through the system. And we have to understand that normally our lymphatic system is built with redundancy. And what I mean by that is if we had the lymphatic system working at its maximum capacity, we call this the interstitial transport capacity. If its maximum load is this amount right here, our body generally only produces about 10% of that. So we have this 90% region here that we call that functional reserve. So what we normally produce is this amount. We should normally have a lot of extra area that a lymphatic system can go through. So even though we're pushing fluid, even though we're generating fluid, we should have those reserves to try to help work through that. Where we run into problems is because of one of two reasons, and this is where lymphedema can occur. This is where phlebo lymphedema can occur for those who have vascular edema that lead into lymphedema, and that is through one of two mechanisms, either a dynamic insufficiency or a mechanical insufficiency, okay? And if we look at what a dynamic insufficiency is this is individuals that are suffering from phlebo lymphedema, which is lymphedema that has overwhelmed the lymphatic system because there's more fluid going in than the lymphatic system can handle. And that means that there's so much fluid coming from the bloodstream, and from the vascular system that the lymphatic system just simply can't handle that amount. That's when we're going to start having edema. And that's when we're going to have more fluid going in than the system can actually handle. It's going to eventually wear out the lymphatics, and then that's when it converts from being what we call venous stasis edema or venous insufficiency edema into lymphedema. The other mechanism is that what we call mechanical insufficiency. This is those who have had either primary lymphedema from congenital malformations or from other causes, related to cancer or surgeries or injuries, where literally that functional reserve was taken away. The lymphatic system was damaged or severed or reduced, so that its total capacity is now less than what the normal load would be. And that's what we call secondary lymphedema. And that's what many other individuals suffer from as well. And that's one thing that we see with many of our oncology patients and many of our post-surgical or trauma patients that we've seen over the years. So let's talk about lymphedema. Lymphedema is, by definition, I think, everybody that's on here could probably define it better than I can. But it is that accumulation of extracellular fluid causing an inflammatory process in the body part. Now, I read that because that's a very important part of what separates normal edema or temporary edema from what is called lymphedema. I thought it was very interesting a few years back that some researchers in Stanford were actually able to identify that the skin actually releases an inflammatory enzyme when it's placed under internal stress. That's what the lymphedema causes. It causes stresses on the skin. That's that inflammatory process that we've always known was there. Now we know why. So the more we can try to reduce those loads, the more we can try to not create an increase in load in that superficial lymphatic system by really pushing those deeper lymphatics with our muscle pump, that's where we're going to actually have a benefit, and that's where we're actually going to manage our lymphedema even better. That's why lymphedema is such an important, or I should say exercise is such an important component of complete decongestive therapy, which is what most people are used to when they're used to having treatment for lymphedema. Again, what is complete decongestive therapy? It is a 4-part process. There's generally 2 phases. Sometimes we actually have 3 phases in our treatment programs here, but they generally always compose of 4 components: manual lymphatic drainage, compression management, skin care, and exercise. Unfortunately, I think sometimes in many people's case and many of the patients that we have worked with is that sometimes, because lymphedema therapists often get overwhelmed, is the exercise part that really is not given enough input. Most of the time, patients are just given handouts, or they're just given rudimentary exercise videos on lymphatic exercise, which really just to me are not enough. Again, that's my personal opinion. I know that there was a disclaimer that Jeanette kind of emphasized this more earlier. This is my opinion of working and having the blessing of working from people from many parts of the country that have come to see us. And this is why exercise is such an important component with us, because we've seen the benefit with it, and I hope we can share that with you. So what are some of the key elements, that exercise can help? One is that exercise will help to reduce or solubilize some of those protein fibrosis. What is protein fibrosis? Well, it's as that fluid accumulates in that interstitial space. If it's not filtered out right away, if it's allowed to stagnate in that interstitial space, it starts binding together and hardening. That's what we call protein fibrosis. If it hardens enough, it starts blocking the entry ports into the lymphatic system. And that's when lymphedema can actually progress from a stage 1 to a stage 2 or a stage 2 or to a stage 3. One benefit of exercise is that through that muscle pump, through that activity, it actually can help to break up those proteins, solubilize them so they can actually be filtered into the lymphatic system and moved. It's great for weight management. There are strong correlations that because of the amount of edema that people undergo, it restricts their movement. It makes it harder for them to move. And consequently, we've seen weight management issues with those who are suffering from lymphedema and an increased level of obesity. So we can, by making sure you keep with a good exercise and fitness program, you also help manage the weight. It's important for musculoskeletal health. We found that those who have undergone lymphedema in a limb, that has negative effects to their joint health. So we want to improve their joint health. We want to improve that muscular, tendinous junctions. We want to keep that limb moving. We want to keep the bone density. We don't want those bones to become inactive. So it's very important. It helps with maintaining proper, posture mechanics, movement mechanics, and normalized gait, so individuals don't start developing, postural problems, chronic pain like chronic low back pain, chronic knee pain, chronic hip pain, chronic shoulder pain. And also, again, as I mentioned earlier, it is important and necessary for deep lymphatic flow. And it's good for overall mental health. The importance, again, if we look at what is a exercise program, we have to look at really what is a good fitness program. Fitness basically entails 4 components: strength, endurance, flexibility, and stability. You need to have a program that entails and addresses all 4 of those areas. That's what we mean by a fitness program. So it's not just exercising and doing one thing. It's not just walking, or it's not just bicycling, but it's really, really important to cross-train. And many people have talked about cross-training, but not a lot of people have really understood what cross-training really is. Cross-training means that you're doing a variety of different activities, that over a given time period, generally we measure them in a range of 7 to 10 or 7 to 14 days, that you're doing a variety of different activities that will address all 4 of those areas. Rarely does one activity entail, will cover all 4 of those. I mean, unless you're a gymnast or something like that, it's not going to. So you want to have a variety in your exercise programs. You want to have a variety in your fitness programs. Don't get stuck with just one activity and stick to that. So let's talk about each one of those and some things you can do along those lines. So flexibility, basically we mean stretching. The benefits of stretching is, 1, it prepares the musculoskeletal system for work. So whatever I'm going to do, if I'm going to go out walking, if I'm going to go out and play golf, if I'm going to go out and kayak, I want to stretch first. I want to let those muscles, elongate so we don't run the risk of injury. Always remember, a warm rubber band is always more flexible than a cold rubber band. All right. You can also use stretching to permanently lengthen tissue. There's different ways of doing that. We can also use it to prevent joint contractures. This is very important for those of you listeners who have undergone breast cancer treatment or abdominal treatment or reproductive treatment for cancer and have undergone radiation. Radiation burns can actually contract tissue for up to 2 years. So for 2 years, we recommend that our patients maintain a stretching program so that tissue doesn't contract. It also allows ease of movement. The tighter your muscles are, they actually then fight you in your movement, and you actually waste a lot of energy because you're fighting your own body to move. And it minimizes what we call lymphatic vessel stenosis. If there's so much fluid that our system cannot literally expand and contract, then it's going to weaken because it's only going to be able to go this much. We want it to be able to fully expand and fully contract. So the more we stretch those vessels and we keep them, lubricated, we keep them flexible, we keep them open, we're also going to keep them healthy. So what are some ways we can do that? One of the best ways to do it, where we've seen most of the research, where we've seen many people benefit, regardless of where you have your lymphedema, whether it be in the arms, the legs, the head and neck, the abdominal region, yoga has been proven to be a very fantastic type of program. Also going in and getting a massage, whether it be from a lymphatic massage or just a therapeutic massage, they will stretch and elongate tissue, myofascial release. All of these are very, very good things to have. Plus they feel good. Although that person at the bottom of the picture, I'm not sure would be as comfortable with her stretching as anyone else. There are now places of business that focus just on stretching. We have here in Hilton Head a place called the Stretch Zone, where many of our patients, we recommend them to go in, and they actually have a stretching session. We've actually worked with them, and we recommend that those, if you have a stretch zone or something similar to that in your location, that you have your lymphedema therapist talk to those individuals so they know how to work with people with lymphedema or people who have gone through cancer treatment. But again, they come out feeling great. It's much easier to move and much more flexible. Also, the use of personal trainers. It wasn't until I moved down here and saw really the benefits of having a personal trainer work with you. They're going to spot things and see things that you may not. They're going to help you work on specific areas and specific goals. So never be afraid to use a personal trainer, even if it's for a brief period. You don't always have to use a personal trainer for a whole hour. Many times they'll work in 15-minute blocks for you, so they can make it more cost effective for those that aren't able to. But really, again, that flexibility makes a difference. We also look then at endurance. Okay, what is the benefits of endurance? Basically, it's to decrease the fatigue of exertional activities. If you're a person that is struggling, walking for 10 minutes and then having to take a break, the more you do it, that's going to go from 10 minutes to 15 minutes to 20 minutes to 30 minutes. It's going to allow you to be able to gradually increase. It's also going to improve the oxygenation utilization of the muscle tissue. One of the things that we see that after people have gone through major debilitating events or deconditioning events, their muscles fatigue much faster. Part of that is that within our muscle, we have a substance we call mitochondria. Now, mitochondria is literally the little energy factories of our muscle tissue. Just like any economic demand, if your muscles aren't demanding energy, we shut those mitochondria down. You lose mitochondria in your muscle tissue. So then if you try to exercise or you try to do any activity of your daily living, there's not enough oxygen, or there's maybe plenty of oxygen. There's not enough energy factories to convert that to energy that the muscles can use. They're going to fatigue faster. If you create an endurance program, whether it be walking or cycling or anything else, that demand is going to increase the number of mitochondria that you need. It's going to start, energizing so that the oxygen that you have is going to be better utilized. The other thing it's going to, the more rhythmic activity that you have, we found that this is one of the best things we look at when we work with individuals, is anything that involves low intensity, long duration, rhythmic motion. That's one of the best ways to stimulate that lymphatic pumping mechanism. We call that lymphangiogenesis. It's going to slowly, your lymphatic system will suddenly start pumping at the same rate that you're walking, or the same rate that you're kayaking, or the same rate that you're doing other activities. It's really going to get that nice rhythmic motion and really get that fluid pumping through the system much, much better. Again, what are some activities? I kind of mentioned a couple of them. For those with lower extremity edema, walking is a great tool. It is one of the best tools. If we can't walk, then getting on a bicycle or getting on a stationary bike. It doesn't have the same effect in the truncal region as walking does, but again, it's still getting that rhythmic motion, especially of the lower part of the legs or that kind of thing. Kayaking is one thing that in Hilton Head, kayaking is a big deal. That's a great activity for the upper body. Again, low intensity, long duration, rhythmic motion. It's great. Golf is actually a fantastic thing, especially if you walk instead of taking a golf cart. But again, it's causing that rhythmic motion. And one of the other things too, one of the best things to do is dancing. Dancing involves the upper body, and dancing involves the lower body. It recreates constant movement. It's always to a rhythm. It's one of the best things you can do, and it's one of the best things that we promote for our patients. Again, if we look now at the only thing we have to be careful about is muscle fatigue. In endurance, you don't want to work to the point where you start getting sore or tired. When muscles can no longer respond to the stimulus, if we don't have that mitochondria, that's why we suggest that people walk for time, not for distance. Walk for 10 minutes here, and then 10 minutes back and see how you feel. Make sure that you walk at a pace that's reasonable and is not excessive. The one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to build up lactic acid. That's when you start getting the muscle cramps and this kind of thing. And that's because we've used up, all the, or I shouldn't say used up the oxygen, but we've maxed out our mitochondria to use oxygen, but there's still a demand. So it starts burning the other energy routes, the sugars, the proteins from that. That's when we get lactic acid. That's also one reason I bring this up, is because that's why using compression is so important while you're exercising. We've actually found that with our star athletes. Finally, there was some recognition with it. You'll always see LeBron James, as I put it, he always wears the sleeve on his shooting and dribbling arm. You see marathon runners wearing compression, socks and thigh-high compression wear. We found that compression actually minimizes that buildup of lactic acid, but it also stimulates and gets it through those deeper vessels. So again, giving your muscles a counter pressure, is really going to help move that fluid through the deep lymphatics, and it's not going to allow it to percolate up into those superficial lymphatics. The other thing is stability, okay? Balance, being able to move efficiently, being able to stand and walk efficiently. One thing we've seen, again, when somebody has what we call unilateral lymphedema, in other words, lymphedema in one limb, versus two limbs, that causes deviations in your balance, that causes deviations in your walking, that causes deviations in how you move your upper body. And that causes what we call an asymmetry in the body. That is a tremendous user of excess oxygen, of excess of energy. That's why we see a lot of people with increased levels of fatigue because of that. So the more you can maintain, good balance and good efficiency and utilizing, our core body, it's very, very important for movement efficiency. Plus, it also is the main component to move the truncal edema, through the body. Basically all the fluid from our arms, all the fluid from our legs eventually goes into what we call the thoracic duct. The thoracic duct starts in the abdominal cavity. The more pressure you put on that thoracic duct, the more you pull fluid in and get it through that final part of the system, out into the bloodstream and out of the lymphatics. So you increase that flow. So again, any types of balance activities you can do, any type of core work you can do is very important. And again, another part of the fitness program. What are some things on that? Tai Chi. We have Tai Chi classes. Many facilities right now, Tai Chi is one of the best things to maintain good balance, to maintain good motor control and muscle control. Qigong is similar to Tai Chi, except you have a leader who helps you guide through it. There's a lot more breathing involved with Qigong, a lot more lymphatics, breathing components and stuff that people will do. Yoga, golf, tennis, pickleball, and also one thing we've seen to improve balance is the use of vibration platforms. Now, there's not been a lot of research, on the use of vibration platforms. We've just seen it anecdotally with our patients that it really helps with their balance. We use it for upper arm. I was first introduced to it with my wife, who used it for her arm and her lymphedema. She said it felt great afterwards. We've experimented and used that with our patients for lower limb. Not only does it help vibrate and help solubilize and move fluid, but it's also great for those who have imbalance concerns. So it's something to consider. Strength. This is the one that many people like to focus on. This is the one that can cause the most injury if it's not done carefully or not done strategically. What does strength do? Strength is there to protect your joints and your bones. It's there to improve the muscle pump. It's there to help you produce energy. Basically, it's the mover of our body. It's the protector of our body. We need to have strength in our limbs so that the body moves well and moves efficiently. But there are different ways to strengthen, and there are some ways that are better than others. So if we look at exercise and strengthening techniques, there's basically two ways. There are open chain exercises, there are closed chain exercises. Each one has its benefits, but each one has its drawbacks too. But both can be beneficial in their own realm. So if we look at what an open chain exercise is, open chain is exercising a body part with a limb moving freely through space. So in other words, it's basically doing a bicep curl, okay? That is basically what we call an open chain exercise, all right? You can do it isometrically or isotonically, okay? If we look at what isometric means that I'm moving, moving the body, but nothing's, I'm not moving a joint. So again, I'm sitting here, I'm just tightening my muscles, all right, and then I'm releasing, tightening my muscles, and then releasing, tightening my muscles, and then releasing. So I'm not really moving the joints of my elbow, I'm not really moving the joints of my shoulder, but I'm causing muscle contraction, all right? It's one of the safest exercises you can do because it puts the least amount of risk for injury on the joints. It puts the least amount of injury on the muscles, but you still get muscle contraction, okay? You don't need special equipment. You don't need anything else. The one thing it doesn't do is it's not necessarily going to increase strength as much as it's going to enhance the relationship between the nerves and the muscles. If you do 10 just contractions and then release, you're going to feel that by the 10th one, all of that muscle is involved. You're getting all that muscle to work, okay? Plus you have to be careful that if you're not breathing while you're doing it, you can cause an increase in blood pressure. So you've got to be careful along those lines, right? Isotonic means that we're actually moving the limb. We're actually getting that moving, okay? And that's the difference between isotonic and isometric. Now, the advantages to isotonic, if we look at just range of motion, just moving my arm, say, through here, or moving my leg in space, okay? You've got, basically, you can always move within a pain-free range. It's not going to put stress on the muscles because you're just going against gravity, and that's the amount of work that you would do. It's similar to like a jumping jack, all right? So, so you're not going to put most of the strains on it, on the body that you would normally do it if you were doing something with weights or something along those lines. And that goes into what we call resistive range of motion. Resistive range of motion, is where you try to increase or improve the strength of the muscle, improve the size of the muscle. You can't increase the number of muscle fibers, but you can increase the size of those muscles. The only thing is that, you've got to be careful because that's where you have the greater risk of injury. The one thing I've seen, unfortunately, with too many people that exercise is that if a little weight's good, a lot of weight has to be better. It's more important, especially for those who are working to try to manage their lymphedema, that a lower weight but higher repetition is always the best way to go. And again, I'm going to repeat that: lower weight but higher repetition. As we would call it, it's maintain a lower intensity but a higher frequency. That means you're pumping. Again, if I'm using this, I'm pumping, I'm pumping, I'm pumping. It's always thinking about trying to pump through that system. All right. Closed chain exercises is much different in that the body is always in contact with a solid surface. So an example of that is somebody doing a push-up. An example of that is somebody doing a squat. Something where you're using, multiple muscles, multiple joints all at the same time. One of the advantages is that probably has the most carryover into daily activities. If I'm doing a push-up, that would be the same as if I had to push a box across the floor. If I was doing a squat, that's the same as if I was bending down to pick something up. The disadvantage, though, is that you can't work on an individual muscle. It's going to work on multiple muscle groups all at the same time, where you have a decreased risk of injury, but you are not able to, necessarily put stress, over stress on any one joint or anything like that. That's always for those that are working with lymphedema, since lymphedema is affecting an entire limb or an entire area of the body. I've always been a fan of closed chain exercises over open chain exercises. It doesn't mean that they both don't have a purpose, but I would always recommend closed chain over exercise. Again, what's an example, doing different squats or anything like that. Here's some other things. Gardening is a great activity to improve strength. Weightlifting, going up and down stairs, not taking the elevator, but actually taking the stairs up and down. Working with resisting bands or doing, like you said, sit-ups or squats or push-ups or those kinds of things, right? So now if we look at just kind of in closing, just a few things that I always like to kind of wrap up with and really kind of, emphasize to anybody who's working with an impairment or a disability. I'm a believer, you never work in pain. Pain, in my mind, is your body trying to tell your brain it doesn't like what you're doing. And in all my years of experience, the one thing that I found is that anytime the brain receives a negative signal from the body, one of two things is happening. Either a muscle is working harder than it's supposed to because another muscle isn't doing its job, or you're moving in a way that's causing something to bang into something else. And it's telling you and asking you to stop doing it. So if you're working or you're exercising and you're having pain while you're doing it, don't necessarily stop, but just decrease the intensity level. If you're working with a 10-pound weight and it's causing some pain, drop it down to 5 pounds. There's no reason why you can't do that. And, but your body is going to appreciate it. And that's how you're going to get better. As I mentioned earlier, always recommend wearing compression. We want to push that fluid through the deep lymphatics, all right? We don't want it to percolate up to those superficial lymphatics. If you're wearing a compression garment, that's going to aid the muscle pump to get that fluid moving, and it's not going to overload those superficial lymphatics. So I just strongly suggest, one thing that's really, really good that we've actually seen a couple of recent research articles, one of the best activities for lower extremity lymphedema is water walking. Actually getting in the water and actually walking, more than swimming, but walking, because of the pressure that the water places on you in the lower body. But we also say, take those old pair of compression garments that if you've got a new pair, and use one of your old pairs and actually walk in the water with your compression garments, all right? Embrace variety in your program. Look for different things to do. Don't just do one thing and get stuck in a rut on just doing that one thing. It's always good to have a variety. That's how you're going to maintain a good fitness program and a good, well-balanced program. And be strategic in your exercise goals. If I'm going to go someplace and I'm going to try to exercise, what part of fitness am I addressing? Is by doing this, am I addressing strength, or am I addressing endurance? Or is this a good balance activity for me? Or is this a good way to maintain my flexibility? What have I not done in this 10 to 14 days that I should be doing, and what part of fitness have I not done? So be strategic in what you're trying to do and how you're trying to keep your activities going. And then always work towards your goals, but be realistic with your expectations. My goal is to be able to walk 5 miles, but I got to be realistic that today I may only be able to walk a half a mile, and I know I'm going to build myself up. Don't say, okay, I'm going to try to get that 5 miles, because you're going to pay the price for it. So set goals for yourself, but always be realistic in those expectations that you have. All right. And I want to thank you all for letting me be here to talk to you. I hope I've been able to share a few things. I would love to be able to offer any questions or answers or anything like that, and I've absolutely enjoyed my talk with you.
Thank you so much, Dennis. That was a wonderful presentation and a wonderful talk. And we do have a whole bunch of questions. And I'm just going to keep you spotlighted, turn off my video, and I'll just be like the voice in the background, okay?
Okay.
Okay. So the first question I actually hid for a second, and it is from Donna. She asked, does it matter if you do lymphedema exercises first or MLD first?
Well, I mean, one thing that is very good, and that's a great question, Donna, is we always suggest doing the MLD first. As I mentioned earlier, the lymphatic system, in general, pumps at a rate of about 6 to 10 times per minute, the lymphangiogenesis of the lymphatic system. What we found is after you do MLD, you can get that system moving as much as 20 to 30 times a minute. So you've already got that system going, all right? Then use the exercise to keep it going and extend that a little bit longer. So that's actually a great question. I always recommend doing the lymphatic work first, then exercising after.
Thank you. Sherry asked, does endurance exercise promote the development of new lymphatic vessels as it does with capillaries?
That's some research I honestly am not sure of. I would say if you're looking at injured areas or injured tissue, that's going to be one of those things where we would say, in those who have undergone radiation treatment, the more you stretch, the more you break up that denser connective tissue, that scarring tissue from the radiation burns. That's going to allow migration of capillary vessels. It's also going to allow the migration of lymphatic vessels. I've always known that the body always responds to demand. So if you are demanding that the body create a load or create work or create resources for an area, it is going to respond to that. So if we're exercising a body part that's actually forcing capillary migration and capillary, regeneration, I can only think it's going to also increase capillary migration as well.
Thank you. Francie asked, can you kayak if you have upper limb lymphedema?
Yes, my wife kayaks all the time. I think the one thing that we are careful of, we live in what was called the low country. So our tides can be very dramatic. So in her case, we only kayak in either high tide or low tide where there's not a big current. But no, kayaking is one of the better things you can do for that upper limb. It actually creates your upper body. It's going to force you to maintain postural control. It's going to force you to stretch out, especially with upper limb lymphedema, which is very commonly with cancer. One of the things we always want to kind of guard against is that contracture this way. So when you're kayaking, you have to maintain good form while you do it. So that's one of the reasons why we recommend kayaking, is because it does promote upper extremity, and help the upper extremity.
Thank you. An anonymous person asked, for upper extremity lymphedema, can you wear a compression sleeve while swimming?
Yeah. It's, again, wearing compression. The only thing that we tell a lot of people to be careful of is if you go into a chlorinated pool, you are definitely going to shorten the lifespan of that compression garment. So I would not use your newest garment that you have. That's one where just use one of your older garments, because it's already kind of slightly worn out, but you're also generating some exercise with it. So it's still going to create a counterbalance. It's just once it hits the chlorine, water, it is going to diminish its lifespan just that much faster.
Thank you. Heather, continuing on the idea of swimming, asked, are there recommendations for how to remove wet compression garments after swimming or water walking while wearing them?
Great question. It's always obvious that our body does, at least the skin, does absorb water. So it is always going to be a little bit more difficult, once you've been swimming or anything like that. I don't have experience. I've had a couple of my patients tell me, that once they get out of the pool, the first thing they do is they take their garment off to try to let either the arm or the leg dry out as much as they can. They allow that drying, activity to go. Some of them will go with talcum powder, and after they've gone swimming or water walking, then they'll just basically put some talcum powder into the garment if you're not allergic to it, and then kind of use that to help ease that garment on. Also, if you look at some of the sock, the donning tools you have, the sockies or the easy slide, or something like that, that's going to help also. If you've got an easy slide, that's going to make it easier for either the upper limb or the lower limb to get the garment on or off.
Thank you, Dennis. And I'd like to offer that I think that especially when things are wet or when things are really difficult, that just peeling the garments inside out like a banana is the easiest way to go about it. If you watch one of our earlier webinars where I had demonstrated that, that's something that you can use as a resource. Thank you.
And also to add on that too, is one of the best tools you can ever have to get garments on and off are gardening gloves. The rough rubber gardening gloves are so useful as far as getting it on, especially if you have something wet, because it'll still allow you to make adjustments to the position of that garment while you have it on. It's an absolute vital tool. My wife travels quite a bit. She always carries one in her purse because whenever she has to take her sleeve on or off, especially going through TSA, she always has that glove to help get it on or get it off afterwards.
Thank you, Dennis. Continuing with water theme, can somebody do exercise in the water without the compression garment? In the water, the pressure is already there, is it not?
It is, and this is one where I respect the fact that everybody has their own way of doing things. The good Lord gave you freedom of choice. I'm not going to take it away. All I can say is that by letting yourself wear a garment, it's going to just enhance the muscle pump, enhance the lymphangiogenesis just that much more. So again, it's always a matter of choice. I can say that, I mean, I've been married for 33 years, and the last thing I'm going to do is tell my wife whether she should or shouldn't wear her compression garment when we do something. So there are times when she doesn't want to wear it. There's times when I strongly recommend that she do, and she looks at me and says, okay, that's fine, and I'm still going to do what I want to do. My best advice is all I can do is to give you that suggestion. It is, exercise is beneficial regardless. You're always going to get a benefit from that. I don't want to see here and say you have to wear a compression garment, but I will say that it will help the process if your primary goal of using the water and being in the water is to help manage your lymphedema. The compression garment's only going to help that.
Thank you. Continuing with the water theme, Alice asked, wearing stockings to the beach, ? I'm in and out of the water all afternoon. Also, can't keep taking on and off to avoid skin irritation with the sunscreen. What do you recommend? How do you navigate the beach?
That is a tough one, because the salt does, get into those garments, especially if you're going to the beach. You get sand in the garments, you get salt in the garments. A lot of it is if you're going to the beach to be at the beach, it's one thing. If you're going to the beach to actually get into the water and this kind of thing, again, personal preference, personal choice. We have a life to live. I mean, we do have a life to live. Not taking the garment off for brief periods of time is not always a bad thing. But at the same token, the one thing you don't want to do is create a major inflammatory response to that affected limb. So if you're going to take the compression garment off and leave it off for a few hours, especially at the beach, make sure you are putting on a high SPF, sunscreen on there, and making sure that you're putting that on multiple times throughout the day. If you've gone into the water and get back out, and make sure you dry off and put that sunscreen back on. If you've been sweating or perspiring for any length of time, make sure you put that on. The worst thing that you could do is cause a sunburn to that area, which could be highly detrimental, and cause a major inflammatory response and really exacerbate your lymphedema.
Thank you. Alice also asked, do you think that it's possible that when you wear the garment plus the hydrostatic pressure of the water, could it be too much compression?
Only if it's causing pain. That's my requirement, and that's the parameter. If you're wearing a compression garment and you're in the water and it's actually hurting to wear that, take it off.
Thank you. Okay, so let's see. There are a couple of questions here that people asked that are not relevant to today's topic. So I'm not going to address it here, and I'll try to answer it, by typing it in afterwards. But let's see here. Okay, Linda asked, are you familiar with the lymphedema exercise program called Healthy Steps? It's designed to move lymphatic fluid and was offered at her senior center. It seems to be well thought out. What are your thoughts?
There's a lot of different exercise programs out there. I know one, H.O.P.E out in Denver has come up with those. There's a STAR program out there. I think they're all good, and I think they're all beneficial to some degree. I think going a step further though, I think a good healthy fitness program is one of the biggest things that I want people to try to take from this lecture. Don't get stuck just doing one thing. Do a variety of things, and keep it, along those lines. And a lot of those programs will do that in conjunction with a yoga program or a strength and conditioning program or a Qigong program. Again, it's each one has their place. And again, it's that strategic value of, if I go and do the STAR program, what is that going to offer me? Am I addressing, is that purely a strengthening program? Is that perfectly just a range of motion or stretching program, or does it involve a little bit more of a fitness program?
Thank you, Dennis. Okay, so Ned asked this question. I'd like to answer this a little bit first, but he asked, can exercise sometimes be counterproductive for some individuals where it causes an increase in lymphedema? And my answer to that is absolutely, it can be, right? It's when you overdo it. It's when you significantly surpass your current level of fitness. And so you have to know where your current level of fitness is. And in order to make gains, you do have to push yourself beyond your your current level of fitness, but not dramatically. It's just pushing yourself a little bit in terms of time, one parameter at a time, right? And then you slowly build up your endurance, or you slowly build up your flexibility, you slowly build up your strength. But it's absolutely possible where you do it significantly beyond your current level, where you injure yourself, and that will certainly be counterproductive. But Dennis, please go ahead and add to that as you like.
There's really not much more to add to that. I think you answered that question, perfectly. And that's where I think it goes into. You've got to be strategic, and you've got to make sure that your goals and your expectations are both realistic. Working towards a specific goal is great, but you've got to be strategic and plan and understand and be realistic with the expectations of where you are right now. It doesn't matter, whether you're suffering from lymphedema or suffering from other injuries. If you over push and you push beyond what your body is capable of doing, it's going to possibly break down once you injure it. The one thing about lymphedema that can exacerbate lymphedema is causing a major inflammatory response. So if you're exercising and you're not listening to what your body is trying to tell you, and you push yourself into a point where you basically tear a tendon or injure a joint, that's going to cause a major inflammatory response that your body's going to have, and that's when you're going to get yourself in trouble. So I think, again, it's a fantastic question, but it is something that again, listen to your body, and that's why I always emphasize, don't work in pain. You can push yourself to your limits, you can push yourself and increase, but don't cause musculoskeletal pain in the process.
Thank you. And I'd like to add a little bit more to that, where this is where the misconception and misunderstanding surrounding exercise historically with lymphedema has stemmed from, right? It's that, with the studies of the past, or with clinical experiences from the past, or with patient experiences from the past, right? Like patients would exercise, not do it within their limits, exacerbate or develop the onset of lymphedema, and then all of a sudden exercise received this reputation that it causes lymphedema. And that's not the case, right? It's how you approach lymphedema and exercise, right? And if you do it in a methodical way where you know your limits and you progress yourself very slowly, it actually is one of the best things for you, right? As we learned from Dennis's presentation today. And so, I think that, what's another important thing is to think about like how exercise comes in various forms, right? It's basically movement of the body, right? Yeah. So sometimes exercise is a little bit disguise when you don't really think of it. Like people sometimes think that exercise is when you go to the gym and you work on some kind of machine, or when you do like a specific like marathon or something like that. But for example, one of the very common things is something like, let's say you go to Disney World with your grandchildren or your children, and you're walking all day long, and you have not started a walking program before that. And by the end of the first day in Disney World, your legs are totally melted, totally in aches and pains. And it's because what should have happened is that you should have realized that walking all day in Disney World is an exercise, and you did a bit of a marathon that you did not prepare for. So this kind of like lends itself into the discussion with travel, right? When you travel, you have to also consider what are going to be the physical demands of that trip. And sometimes what happens is like this. It's like, let's say you travel to Disney World from wherever you might be, and you do this, all day excursion in Disney World. And then what happens, you come back because of that all day, walking that you did not prepare for. You now then blame air travel. You say, because I traveled on this airplane, I now developed lymphedema. And that's another misconception that we're going to try to clear up as well. But you always have to consider, how are you going to use your body in any circumstance, whether you're, just driving a mile and you're going to maybe have a skiing trip. What are the physical demands? If you don't normally ski and you're going to be skiing all day now, well, that's a lot of demand on your body that you haven't trained it for. So at all times you have to realize what is your current level of fitness versus where you're going to totally push it to the max. And if that is like a big discrepancy, you're going to have to train for it. And to train your body for something, you have to realize it takes a long time to get to the next level. I mean, Dennis, you can tell me if this is incorrect, but generally for the next increment of fitness, it's about 6 weeks. The next increment of endurance, the next increment of strength, it's 6 weeks of training at a certain level. Then it's another 6 weeks.
Yeah, for me is I don't like to put time frames on it. I think 6 weeks is a good kind of marginal type of thing. I think it's really important that, again, people look at their body. People will reach different thresholds. Those thresholds come at different variables and different degrees. It's really, where do I want to be at? All right, where am I at right now? And then what steps and strategies do I need to look for to get to those different areas? I think the thing is that if we're wanting to improve our health, improve our fitness, we want to look at those different variables. Exercise, as Jeanette kind of pointed out, comes into so many different variables. I mean, one of my most favorite exercise for me is actually going out and cutting the grass. I still love to cut the grass, and pushing that lawnmower actually is a strengthening activity for me. Planting bushes is to lift it up, to carry the bushes, to dig the hole. That's a strengthening activity, and that's just a passion for me because I can see the results right away. Now one thing I also have to admit, especially when it comes to lymphedema, the medical profession is still very ignorant. And I say that with all respect to any health professionals that are out there, but there are so many people that still just do not understand what lymphedema is. They do not understand what the lymphatic system is, and they don't know how to address that. And if they don't, you also have to expect that if you go to an exercise class or you go to see a personal trainer, that you have to be an advocate for yourself. You have to train them and teach them what your limitations are, especially when it comes to the lymphedema, and especially when it comes to that. That's one thing that I hope this presentation really helped a little bit, is that we understand that lymphedema is its own animal in itself, and that most people have no idea what it is in general. And that's one of the first questions I ask any other physical therapist that I work with, any other nurse that I work with, any other physician that I work with. How much do you really know what the lymphatic system is and how we actually treat it? So you are really, as far as I'm concerned, you are experts of your own body, and you are experts of this disease. And you actually will have to educate other people who you want to help get involved with your physical health, not just your medical health.
Thank you. That is an excellent point of clarification. And, allow me to clarify also that 6 weeks is the historical, minimum time frame. But of course, there are so many variables that, change that, right? So the more fit you are, perhaps the shorter that time frame might be. The more comorbidities that you might have, the older you might have. Like, there are different factors certainly that play into determining what it takes for you to get to the next level. But I just use 6 weeks to highlight that it's not like let's say every time you go to the gym, like let's say you went to the gym 3 times this week, it doesn't work where the first day you worked bicep curls with 10 pounds, and then you can already increase it to 15 pounds the next time, and then to 20 pounds the time after that. It takes time, was my point. And so thank you for pointing out that it's not so hard and fast at 6 weeks, but the idea is that it does take a long time for you to gain endurance and strength and flexibility and so forth and so on. So thank you for that. Okay, let's see. Let's spend 5 more minutes on questions. We have a whole bunch here. Stephen, by the way, Stephen Keelan from Canada, happy belated birthday. I saw on social media that it was your birthday recently. He just asked if there was a way to basically to be able to connect with you offline after this. Will you be sharing your information for people to connect with you?
Would love to. I mean, our website is hopelifehhi.com. You're more than welcome to peruse that. That has all of our contact information, all of our referral information. Any other questions? It also has our phone number. I am more than willing to talk to anybody that might want to give us a call. Anything we can do to try to help you, to try to help those that are working with you, I'm always, always more than welcome to do so.
Thank you. Let me just look here for other exercise related questions. What do you think about rebounding for lymphedema?
The rebounders, we actually have one here. That is one of my favorite tools to help build up that calf strength. And the calf musculature, the muscles below the knee, are really some of the most important muscles we need for stability, for balance, and efficiency of movement. It's also one of the biggest muscles for those of you that are suffering from lower extremity lymphedema. It's always one of the ones that oftentimes are the most affected by lymphedema, are the muscles, the calf muscles, what we call the perineal muscles, the balance muscles of our lower legs. The rebounder is an absolutely fantastic tool for that. The only caveat to those is those who might have been, who are either undergoing or have recently undergone microvasculature, lymphovenous microvasculature. We've been in communication and talked to Dr. Chen up at Cleveland Clinic, and he's not a big proponent of it in the first year. There's just a little bit of fear that by causing so much elevation and then compression of the calf muscle using the rebounder after microvascular surgery might disrupt the grafts that have been placed in that first year. So that's really the only time that we are not having anybody use that is in that first year after microvascular surgery. But it's a great tool. It's one that we absolutely love. Our patients don't necessarily like it because it does definitely make you use those calf muscles and those lower legs. The biggest key, is making sure that you don't bend the knees too much, that you keep those knees fairly straight as you're doing it, so you're really enhancing those lower leg muscles, not just the upper leg muscles.
Thank you, Dennis. There's another question from Dina, and I'm just going to rephrase this question. But basically, okay. How do you best navigate exercise in the midst of dealing with an injury such as tendonitis?
That's kind of an orthopedic question. It is the biggest key for us is to, and the number one goal really has to be to try to aggressively attack the pain. You've got to get that pain. The pain is going to cause inflammation. So that's when we work with a physician. If you've got tendonitis that was severe enough that you had to see a physician for it, basically we use their expertise to see if they can take anti-inflammatories, some level of anti-inflammatories, whether steroidal or non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. But then that's when we really want to address, either through, rest, ice, compression, elevation, really, again, trying to get that pain down under control first and foremost, so it's not increasing the inflammatory process that's going to go on and associated with it. Once we can do that, then we can work to restore the range of motion of the extremity or the muscle, and then regaining the strength of the muscle. Thank
you, Dennis. A couple of people are wondering, what exactly is a rebounder? Can you say that in a sentence?
It's basically a mini trampoline is what it is. It's those little circular mini trampolines that you'll see in sometimes the exercise gyms.
Thank you. What are your thoughts on inversion therapy?
I think it's kind of to individual choice. I've had one in the past, both for myself and for my wife. We didn't individually get the benefit. It was more for an orthopedic component of relieving back pain or back issues. I've not really ever used it or thought of using it from a lymphatic perspective. I know elevating the legs or elevating the arm or elevating the limb above the heart is a key component. I'm not sure doing an inversion is going, it may offer benefit. I've just never personally used it or personally had any past patients that have used one in the past, specifically for lymphedema.
Thank you. What are your thoughts in terms of, are there any concerns in doing Tai Chi when you have leg lymphedema, the concern being standing for such an extended period of time?
No, because if you really do Tai Chi, there's a lot of leg motion. There's a lot of static and stability. You're actually using those legs. If you've never done Tai Chi, you do get a workout with it. It's not just, it doesn't look like it's strenuous, but you'll feel it. It is a good exercise program. It's one that I highly recommend. And So far, the patients that we have in our Qigong class, we don't have a Tai Chi class, we have a Qigong class, but they absolutely love it. And for lower extremity lymphedema, it's still generating movement, it's still generating that muscle pump through those motions and through those rhythmic motions. So I highly endorse it.
Any concerns with downhill skiing with leg lymphedema?
Outside of the fact that you could injure yourself, it's no, it's if it's something that you love doing, if it's something that you have a passion for doing, it's something that, again, you've got to live your life and you've got to enjoy your life. Downhill skiing is a great sport. It is a lot of motion and movement in the lower legs. You're constantly using those legs. I'm not sure I'd want to do moguls, but that's me personally, just because I'm not that good of a skier. But it is, I mean, we have people who still water ski, as well as people who still downhill snow ski.
Thank you. Last question is, if you have arm lymphedema and somebody is doing like a 30 to 40-minute walk every day, is it advisable to hold a 1 to 2 pound weight in each hand?
I think it's more, it's not going to hurt. It's definitely not going to hurt. It may enhance a little bit because it's making you use the wrist muscles, the forearm muscles while you're holding that 1 pound weight. I think what's more important is that when you're walking, that you walk at a pace that's forcing good arm swing. Usually normal pace is about 1.8 to 2.2 miles per hour. If you're kind of getting more into a fitness walk, then that's more in that 2.5 to 3 mile an hour pace. And those are all paces that are going to force arm swing. So using a 1 or 2 pound weight is definitely not going to hurt because you're having to use those forearm muscles while you do it. The most important thing that when I'm working with those individuals and we're walking specifically to try to embrace the lymphatic reduction or the lymphatic management is making sure that you're walking at a pace that's forcing arm swing and that counterbalance of the arms while you're walking.
Excellent. Very, very, very last question. What are your thoughts on scuba diving?
These have been some great questions, by the way. Fantastic questions. I love it.
What are your thoughts on scuba diving with lymphedema?
Absolutely. I'm a scuba diver myself. Again, for every 6 feet you go, you increase 1 atmosphere. So if you're scuba diving at a 20 to 30, level, you're definitely forcing compression onto those limbs. As you're swimming and stuff like that, you're definitely keeping that going. The biggest thing I would be careful of is just making sure that you don't have any other what we call comorbidities or other health issues that could potentially compromise it. But by all means, like I said, I absolutely love scuba diving. And we've talked about that for my wife. My wife from her cancer treatment, has other medical issues that prevents her from doing it. But she would if she could, and we would love to have her do it if she could also.
Excellent. Okay. Well, Dennis, that was a very animated discussion. Thank you so much for your presentation and answering all those questions. We greatly appreciate you sharing your expertise, and we hope to hear from you again. Just to let you know, you got a lot of love in terms of chat and from my team saying that you were a great speaker. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming and being here with us.
Well, thank you. And again, it was an absolute honor to talk to all of you and to the audience. Like I said, I could just tell by the number of questions and stuff like that it was engaging. It was an honor to work with you. Again, anybody who would like to talk to me personally, or a member of my team, we have 4 certified lymphedema therapists here on staff. We're always welcome to help anybody that needs it. Again, our website is Hope Life HHI. And so we would love to be able to talk and anything along those lines.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Thank you again.
It's been a pleasure.
It's now my pleasure to welcome Phyllis Keith, who is the CEO and founder of Wear Ease. Wear Ease is one of our 4 garment program sponsors. So Phyllis, thank you so much for your ongoing support, your tremendous support. And at this time, before Phyllis speaks, I'd like to ask that everybody please, who's interested in receiving a Wear Ease garment, which is created for the torso, that you go ahead and raise your hand. And once Phyllis starts to speak, so like in about 30 seconds, we're going to close it. So we're going to take a snapshot of the hands, and anybody who raises their hand after that will not be entered into the drawing, which is why sometimes your name doesn't make it onto the wheel. It's hard to keep up, throughout, because then we have to constantly figure out which names were, just added on, and it takes a while to do that. So we're not going to do that. So you have until Phyllis speaks before you are closed out. So Phyllis, thank you so much for being here with us. We are so looking forward to hearing more about Wear Ease. Please do tell us all about Wear Ease and, the history, and please show us some of your products. The floor is all yours.
Okay. So, hi, Jeanette. Thank you so much for inviting me to this presentation. I learn so much every time I go to a lymphedema event. I'm really excited to be here and to share about Wear Ease. And to follow up on the exercise program is a great opportunity too. So Wear Ease was founded originally to design and manufacture products for women after breast surgery. But in about 2008, I learned more about the need for compression. So we developed a compression bra then, which you'll see in the presentation. And then I had ladies asking me for a long line solution because they were telling me they needed compression for the torso. So Wear Ease is based in Boise, Idaho. We make all of our products in the United States, but we design and ship them from Boise, Idaho. Okay. I have a little cartoon here. I'm going to share with you. I'm so technical. I have a new app for getting around. It's called Tuber. You've heard of Uber. Well, Tuber, and it's only available if you drive to Idaho. And if I have to explain that, you might not be familiar, but Idaho is very famous for its potatoes, which is a big tuber. So anyway, so much for humor. Yes.
That was great, Phyllis. Thank you.
Did you get it?
Definitely.
Okay. This is the front page of our most current catalog, and this is an introduction to our product line. So we're ready to wear. We have a line of compression garments, and like I said, the post-surgical garments for right after surgery. I'm going to focus on our compression garments today. And our goal is to make products that are comfortable, functional, and provide mild compression. And we've done that over the years, thanks to the input from therapists and patients who wear these garments and need the garments. So this is a selection of our compression shapewear. And originally we made the slimmer style 910. That's probably one of our most popular garments. And this is for torso compression. So you can get compression on the back, the chest, and the tummy. And I'll share more of that later. But over the years, as we came out with new products, we would listen to therapists and patients, and they would tell us about other features that they needed. So for instance, we created the compression t-shirt style 915 after listening to therapists who said they loved the slimmer, but it would be perfect if we could just add sleeves to it. And the sleeves were added to improve coverage of the chest and the back, not necessarily to give the sleeves the arms compression, but the rest of the torso. So all of these garments are made of a very strong supportive fabric that provides mild compression. And once you put this on, knowing, recognize how you feel. And most women, when they have this on and it fits them properly, they feel the immediate relief from that garment. So these garments were created to meet the needs of patients with lymphedema, lipedema, edema, and post-surgery. This is a little bit about, you were talking about how to don and doff. We recommend stepping in and stepping out of these garments. So if you gather up the sides like you're putting on a bathing suit, stretch the neckline, step in and pull up. They go on much easier than if you're putting them on over your head. Also, if you have some mobility issues or balance, you can sit on a chair and put them on this way, and then take them off the same way. Slip your arms out, slide the garment down and step out. If you try to put these on over your head, you'll hate me. They just don't go on that easily. Also, I was going to mention that this fabric is frequently used in swimwear. It's pretty water repellent, and it's also UPF 50+ protected. So I'm going to go a little bit more detail into the slimmer, which was the first garment that we created for compression for the trunk. So this gives you compression for the underarm, the back, the breast, the chest, and the abdomen. A lot of therapists recommend this for sleeping in at night. So maybe you're wearing a compression bra during the day, and you still need compression at night. This gives you an alternative. And it comes in nude, black, and navy, and white. So our goal is to give you a simple garment that's comfortable, not and is very functional. This is a new garment that we just came out with, and we won the 2020 award for the categories of compression and women's health products. So this is our KDT Style 918, and this is very similar to the compression tee, but we've added pockets. So the garment here is pocketed. This is the inside out. And the idea here is that you could put your tip pads or swell spots or ice, whatever you want, in these pockets. And you don't have to worry about losing them when you're sleeping or moving around. So this is just to give an inside out view. And then we also created the Wear Ease Axilla pad for those pockets. But like I said, you can put anything in the pocket. This shirt, like our other tee, provides good compression for the abdomen, back, chest, underarm area, where frequently the lymphedema fluid pools right in this area. I brought up our compression bodysuits because I thought I was going to be talking originally to people about abdominal compression. So these bodysuits give really good compression on the abdomen. The 1000 is a better choice for the petite woman, someone who's under 5'4", and lower in the rise, shorter in the rise, where then we came out with a 1020, and it is a fuller cut bodysuit. So if you wear this, it's a double layer of fabric, and say you even want more compression, you could pair these with your capris. All of the shapewear is pocketed. So if you need pockets for prosthesis, there are available. If you don't need them, you don't know they're there. And then a couple of years ago, we had therapists say, well, why can't you do something for the bottom of the body? So we started making shorts and capris. Style 612 is similar to a biker short. It comes in size small to extra large. Style 6, the next one over 614, is our high waist compression short. It's plus size. It's the most full cut garment that we make, and it comes in size extra large, 1X, 2X, 3X, and 4X. And then we have 2 pairs of capris. Style 611, which can be more like a slack as opposed to a capri, depending on your height. So then we came out with the short compression capri, style 613. It's 6 inches shorter than 611, and it's also shorter in the rise. So once again, it's a product that's better for the petite body. Also, therapists use these garments frequently for layering, for wraps or stockings. And we've had a lot of good luck of women wearing them that may have the lobules on their legs. Like I said, this is the same fabric that we use for the shapewear tops. Then we have another section in our catalog. These products are products that are made from a different fabric. It's more of a power mesh and for different needs. So this is our collection of bras. We have a bra, a vest, and then we have several long vests, the Andrea shirt, and we also have garments that work well for men. The compression bra was the first compression garment that we created with the help of a mastectomy fitter, therapist, and a woman surgeon gave us feedback and help in developing this bra. It's available in 15 sizes and 3 colors. The largest one is a 4X, which fits a 64-inch bust. The Andrea shirt was a winner of the product award in 2019. This is a shirt that we made for compression for wearing. We actually sewed in the axilla pad. So this was something that you could wear to bed at night and not worry about where the pads were. And you can get this shirt with both pads, a right, a left, or no pads. This is also a good garment for women who are bilateral, but they're bigger in the middle than they are on top. A lot of our other garments don't fit that body shape well, and this one, as well as our other 2 vests, work really well for that problem of having it roll up. So, and I'll share you a little bit more later. Okay, then I wanted to do some detail on fitting. So it's really important to have the garment fit properly so that you get that compression, that mild compression that you need. Our measurements, first of all, are all done in inches. I know a lot of compression manufacturers use centimeters, but since we started out as a bra manufacturer, we've done all of our charts in inches. First of all, when measuring, we ask that you measure the fullest part of your bust, which is at the nipple line. And if you are wearing breast forms, you'll want to put those in the bra, in your bra, and measure with those in. So you get a good idea of what your bust measurement is for when you're wearing the garment. And then take your waist measurement, which is between the lowest rib and hips. And you can identify that by bending your body to one side. Then also measure your hips, and that would be the fullest part of your hips and buttocks. And it's a good idea to have somebody help you. So maybe your husband or your friend or your therapist, which is a good idea, can measure for you. And also consider that you may have different measurements. Your measurements may be different depending on the time of day. So if you're measuring, most people swell more at night, or if it's very hot. So consider when you're measuring and when you'll be wearing the garment. So first of all, the garments are designed for different shapes and needs. So you notice we had the t-shirt. That garment is based on measurements that are pretty proportionate. But say somebody is bigger on the bottom than on top, and they just need compression on the top, then they would choose the crop top, which is a short version of our compression t-shirt. So evaluate your patient's needs. Where do you or where does your patient need the compression? Are you bilateral, and do you wear breast prosthesis? And what is your body shape? Are you an apple, a pear, or are you pretty proportionate? Then take your measurements like I explained, the bust, waist, and hips. and then compare the measurements to the closest fit per our size chart. So if your measurements are between sizes, we recommend always going down to the next size because our garments are generous. For camisoles and shirts, you need to measure the breast, chest, waist, and hips. If the patient, or if you are bilateral and you choose not to wear forms, you're just looking for more compression, then you'll want to consider style 950, 951, and 960. And those are kind of an A-shaped vests, and they'll fit your body type, more of a pear body. If you're looking to measure for the bras, take your measurement around the fullest part of your bust, like the drawing here, and be sure to wear your prosthesis if that's how you're going to wear the bra. For capris and shorts, measure the waist and hips and compare it to the closest fit. And remember, the 613 is better for the shorter body. When the garments are fit properly, they should feel comfortable and provide relief. We're looking for that ah factor. So this is the last page of our latest catalog. If you are looking for a retailer in your area, you can look at our store locator on our website, which is www.wearease.com. If you want to become a dealer, you can go to the same website and see information for wholesalers. So these garments have been successful. We've been making them since 2008. We're always open to getting feedback and input on how they work for you or what you might see a need for. If you ever have any questions, call us. Our toll free is 866-251-0076, or go to our website. Also on our website, you can get a current copy of our catalog. So thanks again, Jeanette, for the opportunity. And I look forward to somebody winning one of our compression garments.
Thank you so much, Phyllis. It was a great overview of all the products, and I even learned about some of the products I didn't even know you offered. So that was a great presentation. Thank you. And Phyllis, are there any limitations in terms of what we'll be giving away? Or is it any Wear Ease product?
Yeah, any Wear Ease product that anybody wants. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your generosity. And again, I'd like to highlight that Phyllis and Wear Ease is a NLN garment program sponsor, for which we are so grateful, because basically through this program, there are a whole bunch of patients that receive garments complimentary through our NLN membership. So basically, just to give you a sense of, in case you're not familiar, our NLN garment program offers compression garments to patients who demonstrate or indicate financial need. However, these are patients of our members. So it's not just, anybody and everybody, because we had to basically find a way to control it. Otherwise, the program would be really difficult to manage. So these are patients who are these are patients who are patients of our NLN members. So anyhow, you might find for the patients who are on today that your therapist is a member, in which case you can ask about our program. Otherwise, perhaps the clinicians who are on here, perhaps you are already a member, and if not, we request that you consider joining so that you can then take advantage of our program and offer this service to your patients. Okay, so with that, we are going to ask Erin to please go ahead and share your screen so that we can then see who our lucky winner is today. And Erin, again, is our marketing manager, and here she is.
Okay, I don't need to share my video, but I do need to share my screen. So
yeah, but we'll see we would love to see your face as well.
That's fine. Okay, so here we go. Ready?
Ready.
So
All right, we have Vanessa winning for the 4th time. I think you know what? Can you just spin it one more time? I think that we would just like to maybe potentially offer another contestant as well. We'll see how this goes. But we have Vanessa, and we also have Linda. Let's see, Linda, just want to make sure that there's only one Linda on here. So congratulations, Vanessa, Linda, Linda C. Okay, great. So Linda and Vanessa, if you can please reach out to Christy Blair. She will put her email address into the chat, and we will send out the prizes shortly. So, all right, I think that's the session. Now we have a whole bunch of questions that were not exactly relevant to today's talk. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically, you know, we've been keeping track of all the questions throughout the month, but what we're going to do is we're going to take the questions and then basically answer them in this comprehensive Q&A spreadsheet after all the webinars are done. And we'll put it in with the webinar that is most relevant. So for example, the keto question that came in today might most be relevant to our talk on the 27th. And so that's how we're going to manage everything. But all right, so then that is our webinar for today. We have 2 webinars left. Thank you to everybody who has been joining us on a daily basis. We see some familiar names. We know who comes in, you know, so reliably, and we thank you for your presence, for your engagement, and for your attention. And we hope that everybody has learned a whole lot, and we hope that you've enjoyed the giveaways as well. And so with that, thank you one more time to my amazing team. Allow me just to give them special thanks one more time, because, you know, basically when we got started with this series of webinars for this month, you know, we only thought of the idea basically 2 weeks before March, right? One day I was like, I think this is what would be needed and what would be great. And I didn't, you know, exactly know how it was going to come together. I just know that it was an inspired idea that I thought would be a tremendous resource to the community. And I didn't exactly know how I was going to do it. Like, I figured, like, if anything, I can basically give all the talks myself. But to all the speakers, to Dennis included in today's talk, to all the speakers who basically just came in and decided to just, you know, step up to the plate. Thank you so much to all of our amazing speakers. And I'd like to thank also my amazing team, because honestly, every day, I don't know who's going to be on in terms of helping me with the Q&A, helping me with the wheel, helping me with the chat.
Jeanette,
Yeah.
did you want me to speak still, or
Oh
are
my
we
God.
run out of time?
No, Veronica. Thank you so much. I did not forget, you know what, the time just like totally.
Yeah, let's just do it another day. We can do it.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We are going to do it right now. Forgive me, Veronica. It was 6:43 and I was thinking, you know, it's the end, but no, we also wanted to give Veronica Scenaris some time to tell you about her social media group, Lymphy Strong. So Veronica, forgive me. Veronica is our social media manager, and she runs this group called Lymphy Strong. And I'm gonna let her tell you more about herself and about the group. Veronica, forgive me. I'm so sorry.
No worries at
It's all yours.
You know, I always have your back, and I'm such an honor for me to be a member of this phenomenal team. And
thank you.
Dennis's talk was absolutely amazing. I think it was the perfect intro to my specific talk that I want to share with you here. And I'm going to make this as fast as possible, because I know everyone has been sitting for quite some time, and you know, we want to get on with our evening. So because you have been sitting, let's go ahead and take a big deep breath and raise our arms. If you need to stretch, hopefully you've gotten up a couple of times during the first 2 talks, if only just to stand and stretch your legs a little bit. Another good idea is to do some quick ankle pumps if you're sitting at a desk like I am, to break up from sitting for so long. But moving forward, exercise and lymphedema. I have some disclosures. Lymphy Fitness and the Move That Lymph challenges are sponsored by Juzo USA. They give t-shirts to our members, and Luna Medical and Absolute Yoga Lutely. They provide virtual yoga classes. So I'll be talking about that later in the talk. That's just a disclaimer. And then the opinions that I am giving you are obviously my own. They're for informational purposes only. If I may make any mistakes whatsoever, obviously they are my own and no one else on these slides. So my goal here today is to help you understand the concept of what a virtual lymphedema exercise community is and how it can possibly apply to your own lymphedema program and your self-management needs as a patient. And then to also describe the potential benefits of participating in the challenges and then some of the positive results that you can reap from doing so. About me, I am a patient, I'm a national advocate, owner and founder of Lymphy Strong. In 2014, that's what my legs looked like. I've had bilateral lower extremity lymphedema for over half my life and my entire adult life. I have a form of lymphedema called lymphedema distichiasis syndrome, and that means that I have a genetic marker of a double row of eyelashes along with swelling in my legs. Lymphy Strong was launched in 2015 and is almost 6 years old. And in that time, we've grown into, we started with a small blog and a small Facebook group, and it has expanded beyond my wildest imagination. You know, I used to think that myself and my father, I'm third generation primary lymphedema, and I used to think that myself and my father were the only people on earth who had lymphedema. And it turns out that, you know, obviously that's not the case. There's over 200 million people worldwide. So you can read more about me and my about. And then, you know, just to give you a sense of where I'm coming from with Lymphy Strong, the ideas that I'm presenting to you and the collaborations that I do within this community, first and foremost, I'm always thinking about my dad who passed away in 2016. Is it something that he would do with stage 3, 4 lymphedema? He endured over 100 bouts of cellulitis, the entire time, 40 years or 4 decades that he had it before he passed away from cancer. Is this something that I would personally do for my own lymphedema treatment? If it's not something that I would do, I won't talk about it. And then how can we leverage, any potential negative personal experiences, whether you had, bad treatment or some type of some search for a doctor or something that didn't go your way. How can we turn those into teachable moments and then, of course, share in terms of patient education and empowerment? So this is Lymphy Strong as a whole from a bird's eye view. What we are specifically going to talk about today is the private group, which is called the Lymphy Strong Running and Fitness Group, which is about exercise and lymphedema. So when I was doing a Google search of lymphedema, I came across this scholarly article, and I thought it was the perfect title for what I wanted to talk about: challenging the myths of exercise-induced lymphedema. I had a negative experience in my patient history. In 2010, I developed lymphedema in 1994. And in 2010, I went to a doctor and I asked him, who knew about lymphedema? And I asked him if I could exercise with bilateral lower extremity. And he laughed in my face. He said it was the most ridiculous thing he'd ever heard, that I needed to forget about, aerobics classes and just stick to brisk walking for maybe 10, 15 minutes a day. And I was absolutely devastated. I was crushed. I went to my car and I cried, and it sent me into depression. And now I'm so happy in 2021 to see all of these related searches, and that there's so much published material that's available here today that wasn't available in 1994, 2004, 2010, and all these years prior, right? Especially if you've had lymphedema for decades, like I have. So I thought I would share this personal anecdote. In the early 80s, when I was just a very small child, my father actually pitched softball with lymphedema. His left leg was impacted. And at that point, you know, it eventually affected him from his toes all the way up to his groin. But at that point, it was only up to his knee. And, you know, I asked him about a year before he died, or when I was thinking about these ideas behind Live Strong, I asked him, weren't you afraid to get injured, you know, while playing softball? And he basically said, well, you know, as a welder, I work in dangerous working conditions. So doing something fun and taking back my life, you know, it made me happy and nobody ever stopped me. And this is perfectly tied into what Dennis was saying earlier in the previous talk, is that when you want to do something and it makes you happy and you're doing it for relaxation, it's important to have that mindset. Exercising lymphedema from the patient perspective is a frame of mind. I firmly believe this. This is my own personal opinion. I know a lot of you may have stories. As a matter of fact, if you want to type in the chat what type of lymphedema you have, how long you've had it, you know, living with a rare disease, any kind of condition that is not well known is a struggle. And so you may have trouble finding information, whether it's about exercise, whether it's about treatment, whether it's about diagnosis. So this quote really spoke to me about no clues, lots of blind alleys, and occasionally disbelieving authorities, you know, about what's appropriate for treatment. The second quote that really stuck, that resonated with me, is if you don't make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your illness. And I know when it comes to exercise and lymphedema, it just feels like it's something that's another layer. You know, we've been watching these webinars. We're on our 29th webinar of the month, and we've talked about compression, we've talked about wrapping, we've talked about bandaging, we've talked about garments, pumping, and you're adding exercise. And one might think, well, how do I make enough time in the day for that? And the answer to that is just, you have to put yourself in that frame of mind that you have to do it in some form or fashion. And like Jeanette said, exercise can be just basically any movement at all. And then the third one is what I think is critically important. You have lymphedema, but lymphedema doesn't have you. You know, it doesn't define us as people. It's not our identity. So it's up to us to put ourselves in charge of this condition. Oops, let me go back. Sorry about that. So exercise and lymphedema, what about me? You know, I run these support groups. I've been running them online for about 6 years. And the very first question that most people post when they join our online group is, I have fill in the blank lymphedema. Tell me how to exercise. Tell me what exercises I need to do, whether it's arm, bilateral arm, leg, unilateral. Some people have it in their arm and one leg, and they want a step-by-step prescription, if you will, on what to do. And I thought Dennis clearly outlined step-by-step what needs to be done. And this article in particular outlines that, is that everything is highly individualized. I won't go into the whole slide because Dennis went into all of that, but basically you need a proper assessment of flexibility, strength, aerobic capacity, and all of that needs to be put into consideration before you start an exercise program. What is Move at Limp? The Virtual Fitness Challenges is a series It's a group of challenges that I created myself in 2017. And it's a platform to get moving and stay moving all year long for at least 10 minutes a day. And the reasoning behind that is none of us, whether we have lymphatic disease or not, none of us were born with a lymphatic pump. We all have a heart for our circulatory system, but regardless of our size or who we are, or whether we have lymphedema or not, we all need to move that lymph. So it's a virtual community. We have 8 events. Like I said, they're sponsored by Juzo. Each participant gets a t-shirt, and the wording is really hard, I think, but for example, this year we've done our Fitness for All. We did a low impact, zero equipment. There's a diverse amount of events with all kinds of fitness themes involved: cycling, Zumba. We're doing a kettlebell challenge this year, Pilates, diaphragmatic breathing, and then, just an overall circuit program. And I think out of my entire talk, the next 2 slides are probably the most powerful. I saw actually questions that alluded to in Dennis's talk. Someone asked if you could scuba dive with lymphedema. Yes, you can scuba dive with lymphedema. Can you downhill ski with lymphedema? Yes, there's proof. There's people in my group that downhill ski and they scuba dive. There's people who do karates, aerial bungee jumping, people golf with lower extremity lymphedema. She's holding a medicine ball, a weighted medicine ball with arm. You can see her compression. We rebound, we cycle, we walk, we do all kinds of things. And so I thought this phrase was really, appropriate. Just have it in your mindset to become one of those rare people who just don't know how to quit. Dennis described water walking during his talk. I personally do that for my own self-treatment program. But again, we just have a diversity of so many different people who do so many different activities. They hike, they walk, they do all kinds of things. I wanted to highlight someone who has been in my fitness group since 2016, when it was created in February of 2016. So she actually got lymphedema in 2014. She started out with 21% measurement, but I wanted you to hear in her own words her journey.
Hi, everybody. It's Lulu Copper Top Tandy coming to you from Michigan in my cute little gym. And I just wanted to give you guys a little pep talk. I posted last week that I was able to reduce my leg down to 6.5% larger than my other leg. My goal was to be under 10%, and we got that. I just want to show you my numbers when I started in 4 of 14. 21%. And then it went in the wrong direction. 6 of 16, 34%. Then we did some surgeries because the traditional therapies were not working. After surgeries, I continued the traditional therapies and I got it down to voila, 6.5%. And how did I do that? Compliance. I did everything that my therapist told me to do, and I did. And then whether it's wrapping, K-taping, pumping, wearing my compression for sure. And then the compliance, you do those things every single day. Lymphedema does not take a day off your body, unfortunately. So taking a day off of lymphedema for me is not an option. And perseverance. I came in today and I lifted weights, and I didn't want to because last night we had fireworks and it was pretty late when I got home. But I just wanted to make sure I got that movement in this morning. And joining support groups, the Lymphedema Inspiration Support Group will give, it's a judgment-free zone. You will get all sorts of support and encouragement there. The Lymphedema table will give you dietary tips. Me personally, I have broken up with bread and pasta. Hard thing for me to do, but it's not good for my leg. And then lastly, my favorite group is a fitness and running group, the shirt. Get that lymph moving as often as you can. I've entered and completed every single challenge that has been posted. So, yep, we need to get all those things going. It's a lot of work, I know. I work full time too, and we just need to keep it going. Bye, everybody. Good luck. Be kind to yourselves.
So that was Luann in the end of 2019. And then in the end of, in August of 2020, she actually got her leg down, and the difference is now 3.85%. So I think going from 34% down to 3.85% difference is a phenomenal achievement. And it took time. It didn't happen overnight. She used her entire lymphedema toolbox. She had the help of certified lymphedema therapists. She went to therapy. She basically implemented the entire month-long webinar series of the NLN that we just covered this month.
Hi, everybody.
So as part of our series, we also have virtual races, and they go anywhere from 5K to 10K to half marathon. You run them at your own pace and on your own schedule. They're very flexible. You can do a little each day, or you can do the 5K and all in one stance. And I'm sharing this picture of Kristen Ryan. She is a young lady who has been in my groups for, I would say, 3 years now. And this past virtual race for Lymphedema Awareness Month 2021, she completed a half marathon by walking a mile each day in her house for 15 days. I thought it was an amazing accomplishment. She worked really hard at it, and she shared it with the group, and we just all cheered her on, and it was a huge success story for her. We're very proud of her. Some of the feedback that we get from the virtual support challenges are that people are pushed back into their workout routine, and the pandemic has really spun a lot of us off of our normal routine. Everything from work to school to just our everyday lives, and so these virtual challenges provide a way for us to get back to that with the support of our fellow people in the lymphedema community. And then I had a new member join. Her name is Jenny, and she said, I love feeling like I was part of something meaningful. This virtual race helped motivate me to be on my normal workout regimen, and helped me to remember that I'm not alone with my condition. So overall, the benefits of virtual fitness challenges are a worldwide lymphatic community camaraderie, improves lymphatic health milestones like volume rejection. There's flexibility, you can do it at any time you want. We just ask that you work out 3 times a week and give yourself rest days in between. There's a wide variety of fitness format. You can either do the challenges, they're completely voluntary, or you can do your own thing and share it with the group. There is a matter of self-discovery, what Dennis and Jeanette were talking about, listening to your body, becoming in tune with your body, knowing that, if you pushed it just a little bit higher, maybe you got a flare up, maybe you swelled up a little bit more, and next time, not to go as hard on that particular exercise. So it also provides accountability to the group, and it boosts your confidence in a private environment. So if you're in the privacy of your own home, you're not necessarily worried about people staring at you, wearing the compression garments, or anything of that nature. I, for one, I like the gym, and I'm happy to explain what my compression is for when I'm wearing them. That's fine with me, but others are not so comfortable. Totally respect that. So, and then most importantly, it's a no judgment zone. When you join our virtual fitness communities, we don't care how much you can do or how little you can do. There's always modifications with everything. And just because someone can do something like run a 5K, that doesn't mean that they're not fighting a battle that we know nothing about. Some people who have a higher level of mobility, they have a lot of cellulitis bouts. So there's different struggles for different people at different times. And last thing I wanted to cover is our pledge. You know, we moved to defeat lymphedema, and when we get tired, we remember when our bodies cannot run or move. And we remember those who can't run or walk and would give anything to have the simple gift we take for granted. And we run harder for them because we know they would do the same for us. And remember the doctor who laughed at me? This is what I have to say to him.
Thanks so much, Veronica.
That's it.
Thank you for all that work. And, you know, I think that the greatest thing to learn from what Veronica's work offers is that, you know, for all of the patients out there who find it really hard to have an outlet in terms of discussing how you feel about lymphedema or just connecting with other people who have it, I think that the biggest thing is, the biggest message is that you're not alone. So I hope that, if you can join her program online, which is totally free, or that you'll be able to take advantage of watching this webinar, even if it's the recording, just that you know that you are indeed not alone and that there's a whole community out there for you, working to make everything better for you. So it's been a long webinar, and for every single person who is still on with us, I mean, thank you so much for your attention and your engagement. We so appreciate, your presence. And to my team, to Dennis Ittenbach and to Phyllis Keith, thank you for today. And I hope everybody has a beautiful evening. Good night.